Hello, and welcome to Grief Out Loud, a podcast from Deggy Center, the National Grief Center for Children and Families. In our show, we explore the many ways that grief shows up in our lives. I'm your host, Gianna DeCristofaro. Today, I have the privilege of talking with author Renée Watson about the multiple losses she's experienced, including her mother, her mentor, the poet Nikki Giovanni, and many close friends. Renée refers to these important people as her anchor people, those who helped ground her throughout her life. In our conversation, Renée shares how these experiences influenced her latest middle grade novel, All the Blues in the Sky, which follows 13-year-old Sage as she joins a grief support group after the death of her best friend. The book explores how young people navigate grief while still holding on to their dreams and finding moments of joy. One of the many, many things I appreciate about Renée's perspective is her willingness to sit with sadness and to acknowledge all the emotions that come with grief, as well as being able to honor the full humanity of those we've lost. Throughout our conversation, she offers insights about the different ways that grief showed up for her, how she's learned to care for herself, and how we can all create space for young people to process their grief and their loss. I loved Renée's book, All the Blues in the Sky, and I especially loved getting to know Renée a little bit more. In our conversation, I got to learn about the people who helped teach her so much about love, how to love others, how to love herself, and how to stay connected to the love from those who have died. Okay, here's my conversation with Renée. Renée, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I usually start all of my Grief Out Loud conversations asking guests about the people in their life who have died, and I'm going to. But first, I wanted to just ask, in this moment, what do you feel that you're most grieving?
In this moment, I am just returning from a 3-week tour. I've been all over the nation celebrating all the blues in the sky, which has made me talk about loss a lot. And what's come up a lot is my mother and my second mom, Nikki Giovanni. So in this moment, I am missing them so much and thinking of them a lot. I feel like I have talked about them often in these last few weeks, and they've just constantly been on my mind.
And so with that of missing your mom and Nikki, Giovanni, your mentor, you experienced in a pretty short period of time a number of losses. And I know those two were part of that. Are there other people, places, experiences that you want to bring into the space together?
Sure, yeah, when I think about all I've lost, there are just these really strong women who have been my anchors all through childhood. So I'm thinking of my good friend Charnetta Hudson, who I knew since I was 14, and she passed away in March of 2004. And I'm thinking of her a lot. And Camila Moon is also a good friend of mine who died, both Charnetta and Camila died young. So it's this interesting relationship to losing friends who it just was so shocking. And then to lose these two elders, my mom and Nikki, in a short period of time, losing all four of them has kind of just turned my world upside down in a way of feeling like the people who I've lost, who I would lean on to get through that, are also gone. So, yes, I'm carrying all of them with me and thinking of them a lot.
What would you like to share with me and with our listeners today about your mom and about your relationship with Nikki?
Oh, so much of who I am is because of the way my mother raised me. I'm so fortunate that she was a good example of how to hold really hard things and persevere through them and to be in pursuit of joy, even if she wasn't happy and even if things weren't going our way, if we didn't have an abundance of things or money, she still found a way to make life good for us. And I think I get my perseverance from her. And so much of the grace I offer to people and the patience that I have is because of my mom. And sometimes when I was younger, I used to be frustrated with her I'd want her to be more upset with someone who I felt had wronged her, or I'd be so um, angry that she was so giving. And I would be, but we don't have a lot. How are you giving out of what we don't even have? And she was very, very generous. And so now that I'm older, I can appreciate that sacrifice and that example. And I hope that I can be that person, whether I have a lot or a little, to find a way to still be giving and to still be in community with people and giving what I do have and not worrying about what I don't. I think she taught me that. Um, and I don't even, Nikki, I feel like so many of us love her poetry and her work. I have been thinking about Nikki the person, not so much Nikki the poet. I'm very blessed that I got to know her up close and personal. And so I think when I talk about her, what I want people to know is that she was really fierce in her love. She loved hard. I mean, you felt it. It was palpable. You knew she loved you. She was a great cook. Nikki was a foodie, and she did not like to go to places if the food was not going to be on her level. And so it was hard because she could cook so well. You you were like, well, I don't know if they can top your lamb. But yeah, I loved eating in her kitchen and being with her. Um, I think that's where we bonded most was just when she would be at the stove cooking, frying chicken, making her rack of lamb, and I would just be sitting under her wisdom and talking with her and healing and loving each other. So, yeah, those are things I think of most when I think of her these days. Is I just miss being in her presence, not so much as the poet, which I did get to see her, read and perform and be with her readers, but I really miss just sitting with her
Mm.
and watching Jeopardy or just, drinking. I'd be having tea, she'd be having coffee, and we would just be talking.
Mm.
And that's what I'm holding on to.
Really missing the humanness of her.
Yeah, yeah, the human part of her.
Thinking about having so many people die in a short period of time, I'm curious, were there windows where Nikki was supporting you in grieving someone, or your mom was supporting you in grieving someone? And what are the ways that they were there for you in your grief?
Yes, exactly what you just said. When my mother died, she died in 2021, and Nikki reached out to me every day, either by phone call or text message, every day for the first 30 days
Mm.
after my mother died. She would sometimes just send a text to say, I love you, I'm thinking of you. She would mail me something. She mailed me records, I mean, like vinyl records and handwritten notes, or just call. And sometimes we would talk and I would cry. We'd talk about my mom. But other times we just would talk, and just be together. And she just made it a point to make sure that I knew I had her and that she had me most of all. So losing her has been so hard because she had become the person that I would really lean on when going through something hard like that, and had seen me through the loss of my friend Charnetta. Charnetta died at the beginning of 2024. I was on the first day of a book tour when I got the call,
Mm.
and Nikki was one of the first people that I talked to. And so through that tour, she was constantly checking on me. I know you're grieving and you're out there giving all this love to your readers. You got this, do it in her honor. She was so proud of you. And so on the last day of the tour, which was in New York City, Nikki calls me the night before the reading that I was going to be giving in Harlem. And she says, I'm here. I'll be at your show tomorrow. And I was like, what? What are you saying right now? And so that's who she was. She showed up for me. Yeah, so she just was really good at love. And
Mm.
I don't know that everyone is good at that. Like sometimes people love you and they're not good at showing you that they do. but she was really good through actions, showing that she loved me. So losing her is a great loss, in so many ways, but especially just having that tangible love and that reminder that someone's thinking of me and is here for me and is going to go out of their way to be physically here for me. I'm going to miss that, I think, for the rest of my life.
Well, and it's just now hitting me that you were just starting a book tour when Charnetta died, and then you just had a book tour pretty close to when Nikki died.
Yeah. I'm like, what is happening in my life? Just feels so overwhelming, especially because this particular book is about a character who's grieving. And so I think everyone was already kind of like, okay, what do we need to make sure you're going to be okay as you're going out? Because I was still grieving those losses that kind of inspired the book, meaning from 2020 through 2022, I lost several people during those years. And that is really where I was writing from. I wrote that book shortly after that. It takes a while in publishing for books to come out, and you revise and you work on the cover and all of those things. So the book has been written for a while now. Um, and it was scheduled, it came out this year. And since then, I've lost more people. And so it felt very overwhelming, to say the least, of feeling like, no, I don't want to lose anybody else. I've lost enough. Just I need a break. I need some, I just have been feeling like I don't want to live in that space of, oh no, who's next? What's the next phone call, going to be? Um, but I have been feeling like this is a lot of back to back loss of my anchor people, is what I call them. It's one thing to lose someone that you kind of knew, and you're sad, but you didn't have a close connection with them, but it's a loss nonetheless. But I feel like these are my people, and so I feel that loss on a daily basis. Um, but I'm grateful because even through losing them, I have gained friends and a deepening of friendships that I already had by sharing how sad we are, by leaning on each other, processing with them. So I do feel equally gratitude and grief. Um, I'm very aware that I'm not alone, and that even though I've lost these really important anchors, there have been some other folks who've come alongside me to help keep me afloat, I feel.
Along with these other relationships that have come along to help keep you afloat, I'm curious, were there any practices you relied on for yourself during this book tour? I'm just imagining you needing to like gear up, share your work, which can always be a vulnerable piece, share your work around grief while carrying so much of your own personal loss into that.
So yes, one of the smartest professional decisions I ever made was years ago now, bringing one of my sisters with me when I am on a book tour. She travels with me. Her name is Cheryl. She's the oldest girl in the family, and she comes with me. And it's just having someone who knows you and who knows what's going on and knows the real you, not just the stage Renee, but she just knows me. And it's been great having her. And so we can debrief afterwards and just kind of reflect in the moment instead of, I used to send these long email updates or text updates to family and send photos, but you cannot capture everything that's happening when you're on the road like that. And then have these really long debriefs when I come back after being gone for so long. So it's just been really nice to have her with me. That's been something I've put in place. So, keeping your people close. And then I journal. The writer in me, I think, just finds solace in writing that is for me and not for the public, and just kind of making lists, or just what were the highlights, and just thinking about whatever comes to mind that I might not want to say out loud, but I can put it in my journal. So I do a lot of that. And I go on walks and just kind of let my mind rest. Sometimes it's just nice to not be talking or doing anything. And so I'll just be quiet and take in art. So I listen to music a lot. I'll go to museums and just walk around and try to kind of refill the well after giving out so much. Just try to be in a space where I can receive art and receive love. So those are some of the practices that I've put in place.
This kind of leads to the next question in a way, in that you wrote an article a while back on supporting kids who are grieving, and that
Mm.
the goal is not to teach them how not to be sad, but to teach them how to be sad. And I'm wondering what that looks like in your life. Like, how have you learned to be sad?
So first, just calling it sadness and admitting that that's what I'm feeling. I think sometimes we just want to ignore what we're feeling, and I used to not like, I don't know what's wrong with me today. I'm like, oh, nothing's wrong with me. I'm sad and I have good reason to be sad. And so admitting it, and then I'm okay. I always say this, I'm okay sitting in sadness. Like I don't try to make myself feel better necessarily, but I do sit with the sadness. So that means, journaling and talking about what I'm feeling, what I'm missing about that person. I'll call a friend and just say, "Hey, I'm really missing my mom today. Can I just share some memories with you and talk about her?" And then we'll just have a conversation. Um, and then other times I'll do something that does make me feel better. So, like my mother loved the Golden Girls. And so I will sometimes watch, I don't know, back like 4 episodes in a row of that, or cook a meal that I know Nikki loved to eat. And just spend time in the kitchen making. So it just depends on where I'm at in the sadness and what I need. But I think it's okay to admit I'm feeling sad today, so I'm going to do something to honor them, or I'm going to make space for this sadness in a way that's not going to, keep me in all day and get me deeper in sadness and cry all day. Although sometimes you just need to do that, and that's okay too. But when I want to feel a little more productive and functional, then I will do something, but that's still on my mind. I know that I'm doing it for them or because of them. Does that make sense?
That absolutely makes sense. And it also sparks the question for me of what other emotions have come along on the grief ride for you in addition to sadness.
What hasn't? I mean, oh my goodness. Oh, yeah, sadness, anger, regret, um, loneliness, fear, joy, um, pride, gratefulness, all of that. I have been feeling it all. Um, and sometimes I feel things and I don't quite know what it is, but I know it's connected to them, or I don't know why it's come up in that moment. I'll think, oh, I'm fine today. Like I'm not, I'm just going to the store, and then the store will be playing a song and I'm like in aisle 5 crying, so that has absolutely happened. Or feeling angry about something and then realizing I don't think I'm actually mad about this thing that I'm going off about. It's probably connected to my grief. So I've had to be really mindful of being in tune with what I'm feeling and asking myself why, so that I'm not overreacting or taking things out on people who are still here, but that I'm able to pull back and say, "Oh, I think I must be feeling sad, or I must be feeling jealous right now because this person has their person and I don't," or whatever the thing is. And sometimes just saying it, I can move on quickly from that feeling, versus if I'm in denial that I'm feeling it at all, then all day I'm carrying this kind of heaviness. And it's just easier for me if I can name it and then deal with it so that I can, you know, move on. And I don't mean move on like forget it, but just literally just like be productive in my day and move through the day.
Yeah, I always imagine how much energy it takes to like shove the door closed when
Hmm.
these energies or these forces are trying to come in, or these people are trying to come in, and you're just like, I'm going to push it out as much as I can, versus just open the door and be like, okay, who's in the
Yeah,
crowd? Who wants to come in? There's space for you
right.
in the kitchen. There's space for you in the dining room. You maybe can go in the back bedroom. Just to say, like, okay, that just takes a little less energy for me than trying to hold the door against them all the time.
For sure.
So, your new novel, which is kind of how we got connected for this conversation, All the Blues in the Sky, follows 13-year-old Sage as she joins a grief support group and kind of processes the death of her best friend. How did that story come to you?
I was processing so much after the pandemic, and I want to say I lost people, and none of them died because of COVID. So it was also just this strange time of being on edge about the thing that could take folks from me, and all these other things happened. And so I was thinking about, well, how are young people processing living through this moment where as a whole world, we're going through this. And also, you're going through whatever's happening in your world, like your personal world, all the losses and all the fear. And so, I wanted to talk to young people about that. And I noticed that when schools opened up again and our churches and our community spaces, when we all started coming back together, I don't think adults did a good job of actually checking in with young people and asking, how are you feeling? Do you have any questions? What did you lose? Who did you lose? And so I wanted to have the book be a space for young people to process all kinds of loss. I mean, the literal loss of a person, but also the the grief of any kind of big change, moving and parents getting divorced, a loved one being ill and watching their body change over time, like all the losses that young people have that I don't know adults pay attention to because sometimes we are in our adult minds and handling the very important, business and the big emotions and all of that. But they're human and they have feelings and they are listening and paying attention. So I wanted to write something about grief and how to process that grief and how to get through it and show a character who is grappling with holding on to her dreams and making new friends and her grief all at once. I try to talk about the book starting with that Sage wants to be a pilot. She has, these big dreams and she's not losing that even though she is grieving. And I think that's something that is important to me that when you go through something that is so big, it can feel like that is the only thing about you. And sometimes it's the only way people talk to you. It's just like the only thing they want to talk about. And so I wanted to also just make space for the child who might be going through some really big things and also still having some really big dreams and also having some really big joys, and that all of that can coexist. It doesn't have to be either or. Yeah, just thinking a lot about how life is full of sad things and bad things and really great things happening for me anyway, all at the same time. Like in one week, I have gotten the best news and the worst news literally in the same week. And so if that's happening for me, I can't be the only one. And I'm wondering about our young people and how are they processing their big news as little ones and their sad news as little ones, and just wanted them to have a space to be able to process and talk about it.
Through the process of writing and revising the book, what did you learn from your main character, from Sage, about grief?
Oh, so much. I think Sage taught me that I knew intellectually it's okay to be sad. When you're writing a book, you don't want to just have a sad book, right? I needed to make sure that there were going to be some moments, some light moments for her. And sometimes I would try to push the story in a direction, and I could feel the story and the character be like, no, it's okay. I am sad and I'm going to sit in this, or I'm angry and I'm going to act out in this anger, and letting her do that on the page. And then would surprise me sometimes and do these things that were even out of her character in the book, like how I've written her. I think the reader might be surprised at some of the things she ends up doing. And so that was freeing though, to let her be imperfect and but perfect in that there's no right way to grieve. And her being allowed to have anger and express that, and then also giving her space to ask for forgiveness when she's maybe gone too far. I'm just letting her be messy. I think she taught me that it's okay to let young people be messy and to let myself too, that I don't always have to be okay, that it's fine to not know how you feel and to not always be able to articulate it. So yeah, I think spending time with her while writing her gave me permission also to feel what I was feeling.
One of the things I loved about the book, All the Blues in the Sky, is the way that Sage ends up grappling with two of some of the like more shadowy emotions, I think, in grief, the guilt and then resentment and envy. And I'm thinking particularly of like the guilt she felt about her best friend and how she died and the circumstances around that. And then also the resentment she started to feel to two of the members in her grief support group who had had someone die from a long term illness and talked about that slower process, having some time to have conversations and talk, say goodbye, and that her best friend had died so suddenly. So I was curious if that was reflective of any of your own life experiences.
I've had both. Been at I've had the like this person has been diagnosed with cancer. It's terminal. They don't have long. So you just every time you're with them, it's precious time. I've been at bedside holding a person's hand, literally like ushering them in to what is next. I have gotten the phone call in the middle of the night when you just, no warning, no, nothing, everything is just like, what, who, what are you, I've had that all. And it has been so interesting to me the things people say when it is like you got to say goodbye or you were there in the room, even when you are there, but didn't have months to say goodbye, but could get to the hospital in time, people tend to think that that hurts less. Like, oh, at least you were there, at least you got to say goodbye. That's so great. And sometimes I would feel like, well, but no, but I mean, yes, I'm glad I was there, but also that was the hardest thing I've ever had to do was, and it's all of those emotions. And then I've had people, completely just, oh no, the midnight phone call that you get, that must feel, and I've learned, having gone through all the different ways in which you receive that kind of news, is that it all hurts. And it is the worst grief, no matter how it comes to you, because it's about a person you love. And so I just wanted to put Sage in the middle of this kind of, yeah, working through is there the ideal situation? And does that mean anything less about the love that the person has for their loved one? And I needed to make her work on her listening and work on, not being so selfish and self-centered in her grief. She's so jealous of the other girl. She can barely even listen to them when they're talking about what's happened and how it happened for them. And so I needed her to be on her growing edge a little bit. I try to have characters who are nuanced and not perfect and have things that they need to work on too. And I knew the reader's going to be rooting for her anyway because of the circumstance she's in. But I also wanted her to have to rise and be her best self and show up for people in the way that they're trying to show up for her. So yeah, I was pulling off of my own experience of knowing on both ends what both feels like and understanding that it's just hard and that sometimes it's not as important for me to understand what you're going through, but it is important for me to care or to listen. And I don't have to then say, oh, well, mine was like this and this, and start comparing who had it worse. It's just, it's all bad. There's never a good, it's not good. I want them here. Um, period, and that I can also just sit and not have to share my story, even with all the people that I've lost. I'm trying to when people come to me and are sharing about their people, give them space to just talk or share without me having to say, well, yeah, because when and then I'm, going into everything that has happened with me. And so, what is the balance of being in community and sharing, but also giving space for someone to have their moment and let it be about them and their person, and that that's okay too. So I wanted her to just kind of practice that. I think it's important for young people to practice holding space for each other and listening and taking in other people's stories, and then also being honest about where you are too. And that's a delicate dance of how to share and how to be a part of the community, and also how to kind of, know when to step back and let other folks share and talk. Yes, I wanted to have a character grappling with that a little bit. And then as far as guilt and everything she's going through, it did my friend know how much I love her? And did I say it enough? And did she believe me? I don't, thank God, right now, I do not have anyone in my life who has died where I had those questions. And even though I didn't have the questions, it still was relieving to me when I found proof of our love. So when I was
Mm.
packing up my mother's room with my sisters, we found these boxes of, I mean, when I take like something I drew when I was 7, a letter I wrote her when I was 16. She had things from all of us that we had given her over the years, Mother's Day cards, holiday cards. And I just was so touched, first of all, that she kept it. I was just like, and it was very clear that she didn't keep everything, which was smart and wise, because, so, I mean, but because I wrote a lot of poems and things that I'm sure she was like, okay, I can't keep your whole catalog. But the things that she kept felt very intentional, and they must have been special to her. And she kept something from all of us. And it just felt so, I don't know, so affirming to know and to have proof that, okay, I told her I loved her, and I told her more than once because it's in this card and it's in that letter and it's in on the back of this photo. When we used to have photos that we would write on the back of them. Um, and so I just love that she had these keepsakes of our love. And I did not need that, but I'm glad that I had that.
Mm.
And so when I was thinking about how will Sage know that her friend loved her, I thought about, well, when she goes in her room, she'll see things that are just reminders, and so even if you don't get to say that last goodbye or the last I love you, if you have lived well with someone, you have to trust that they know. They know. And I do think of friends I have um, who I just hadn't talked to more recently, but we were very close and they died. And I just would feel like, when I saw them, I wish I had stayed longer at that event to talk with them. And I said I was going to call them and I didn't. And you go through all the things that you wish you could have just had more time to say. And then I will find something and I'll be like, oh, right. They knew. We have a whole lifetime of
Mm.
memories together. And that one time I did not call them back does not erase the whole history of our friendship or our love. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that part of grief too, that I don't know that I was for myself, even with people who I got to say goodbye to, I still want more time with, and I still want to tell them again. And I want to hear them tell me they love me again. And so I don't know that there's ever that full piece of they knew I loved them. I know that they loved me. I'm good. Right? I don't know that I'll ever be good, that they're not on this earth. I just know that I have remnants of them and I have proof of our love. And that encourages me and keeps me when I'm missing them.
Something you said in there really hit home for me around when someone dies, we almost lose our connection to our own humanness and our own imperfections as humans, being human with other people. And we have this expectation of elevating ourselves to this arena of perfection.
Mm.
And if only I had done everything perfectly, maybe this grief wouldn't hurt so bad, but to remember, like, I was a human being a human with another human, and there was a fullness of our relationship that included all the times I called them back and the few times I didn't call them back. And it doesn't take away from the perfection of our connection if I wasn't perfect in that moment.
Absolutely. And in that, I'm comfortable talking about things that frustrated me about the people I love too, because we also tend to just, we honor them so much that they become these heroes and so perfect, and they were the best thing ever. But of course, my mother and I had arguments, and I didn't agree with everything that she did. And I don't just mean when I was a teenager. I mean, like as an adult. And so, yeah, it's okay. Love is messy and complicated, and we are human and flawed. And that is the beautiful thing about it, is that even in all the imperfections, we still find people who are willing to accept us as we are, and we have been able to accept other people. And that is the beauty of love. Not that the relationship was perfect or that we never had any trouble, but that we did the hard work of loving each other, which means hopefully we're practicing patience and kindness and grace and, going through the hard things. Yeah, I think that's why it hurts so bad when they're gone, because I know that it is rare to have someone love you and love all of you. So when you meet those people and you have them in your life, and they've seen you not be perfect and they still loved you, um, it's hard to say goodbye to them because you hope that there'll be other folks like them.
Well, Renee, I have like 49 other questions I want to ask you, and it feels like that was kind of the moment to wrap up of our conversation, and really appreciating all that you've had to share about your mom, about your mentor, Nikki, about your good friends who have died, and about the characters in your book, All the Blues in the Sky, and the work that you've done to help normalize grief for kids in that realm, but not just for kids. I feel like I read that book as an adult and I got a lot out of it. So listeners, you might be thinking, oh, that's a book for younger kids, but I would highly recommend it for anyone who's a human who's dealing with grief. So Renee, I'm really grateful for your book and curious if there's any place you would direct listeners to connect with you, connect with your other writing.
Sure. My website is my name, reneewatson.net. And from there, you can find all things book and social media links and everything like that.
Well, Renee, thank you again for your time and talking with me.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And listeners out there, I know you're sick of me saying this, but thank you for being part of our community, for making Grief Out Loud mean something. For those of you who are new to the show and those of you who have been with us for the past 10 years. I always enjoy hearing from listeners, so you can email me at griefoutloud@dougy.org. That's dougy.org. It's also our main website where you can find all of our free downloadable resources, links to all of our podcast episodes, and information about our local programming. The podcast is sponsored in part by the Chester Stephan Endowment Fund, and Grief Out Loud is a production of Dougy Center, the National Grief Center for Children and Families in Portland, Oregon. Thanks again for listening. We hope you'll join us again next time.